Welcome to my How Healthy Are You weekly educational podcast. My name is Dr. Thomas Brewer. I'm a PhD chemist and nutritional blood microscopist. For this week's podcast, I'll be talking about something known as SIBO, S-I-B-O. It stands for Small Intestinal Bacterial Overgrowth. Sometimes it's known as IBS, IBD, sometimes irritable bowel syndrome, irritable bowel disease. They're all very similar, and the cause is additional bacteria in the intestine. So these are the bad bacteria, the parasitic bacteria, not the probiotic bacteria. So I want to give first the bottom line in all of this. For those of you that don't want to listen to the end, it turns out there's really no difference in a person's symptoms between those having extreme intestinal bacterial overgrowth and those that don't. And there's some testing protocols I'm going to explain, and then at the end I'll say what you need to do if you do have a problem, such as IBD, irritable bowel disease, any one of them, Crohn's, colitis. I'll explain what you need to do. But the testing, and for those without symptoms, those without colitis or Crohn's, it's very hard to tell the difference between the two. Now, normally, anyone that tests for bacteria and excess parasitic bacteria in their intestines, they're normally treated with antibiotics. This condition, this SIBO, is usually very overdiagnosed. So people are given this diagnosis when they really don't have it. A lot of it is also unsubstantiated. So the testing procedure is not ideal. So this is the procedure. Normally, the glucose that is formed when we eat carbohydrates, well, normally that is entirely absorbed in our intestinal tract before the bowel. So if there's excess glucose in the intestine, it's going to ferment with these bacteria, these parasitic bacteria. So normally we get this absorption in our intestines, and if the glucose reaches the colon and it ferments with the bacteria right at the lower end of the intestines, which is where the colon is, it releases gases, and these gases get into our bloodstream, and then when we exhale, these gases would be detected in some sort of a breath analyzer. So that's the testing protocol. You can see a lot has to happen. You've got to have the sugar make its way where this extra bacteria is, and the bacteria ferments and with the glucose. So the glucose ferments, so the bacteria is there, and you get these gases released. Now those gases have to get absorbed into our bloodstream, and then when we exhale, of course, the interface between our blood and the air is our lungs. And I talk about that a lot when I do a blood analysis, and that's why people see these damaged red cells from breathing fumes and odors. So it's the same thing. If you have the gases from a fermentation in your bloodstream, they will show up in your breath, and you may not be able to smell it, but a breath analyzer would be able to detect it. So the bacteria that we're talking about really should be in the colon. That's where these bacteria should be. They really shouldn't be in the small intestine. So that's this parasitic bacteria. So if they're in the intestines, they're reacting with the sugars, and that's the whole problem. So we wouldn't normally see this if the bacteria was only in the colon, the parasitic bacteria. Well, in the end, the bottom line is, who really cares about this? Is this really a big deal? Because the people that tested positive for these parasitic bacteria and those that tested negative, neither one really had additional symptoms. And right now, there are no drugs approved by the FDA to treat this condition, though nobody really cares about it. Typically, antibiotics are prescribed, but in the end, we all know antibiotics make the condition worse. And the reason that is because antibiotics also destroy the good probiotic bacteria. It's the probiotic bacteria is what we need to prevent the SIBO. The probiotic bacteria would prevent the small intestinal bacterial overgrowth. That's the whole point behind this. You need good probiotic bacteria and enough of them so that you can destroy the bad parasitic bacteria in the intestines, because we don't want too many of them there. We need those parasitic bacteria more in the colon. So really all one needs to do is either take probiotics or some combination of a probiotic and a prebiotic. So I've talked about this in a YouTube video, but for a quick review, the probiotics are something you can easily buy. I have them. You want the kinds that colonize, meaning once they make it to the intestines, they multiply and multiply and multiply. Now, most probiotics on the market do not make the trip to the intestines. They end up dying in the stomach. So that's one little bit of fraud that a lot of probiotic manufacturers perpetrate on their victims. The other is these inflated numbers. You'll see numbers in the billions and billions and hundreds of billions, when in reality there's only millions. They've never changed their capsule composition. They've never changed their capsule size. They've never changed their manufacturing process over 10 years. And back then, they were reporting numbers in the millions. And no matter what the number is, most of them die in the stomach. So you have to take them forever. You never really get a good colony. So taking a good probiotic, one that makes the trip, and one that is not sold based on numbers, but it's actually sold based on the type of probiotics in there and the fact that they multiply. So you never really get a number when the probiotic is multiplying because it's actually in the trillions. Now, to combine that, you'd want to also consume prebiotics. Prebiotics are the food for probiotics, so you don't have to keep taking probiotics the rest of your life. The prebiotic foods are your fruits and vegetables, especially mushrooms. They're very good prebiotics, and it's not like you have to eat these every day, but I encourage people to eat produce every day. And in fact, I encourage people to do it every meal. And when you do that, you'll be taking in plenty of prebiotics, so your probiotic numbers never go down. So once you sustain a good colony, you won't have to keep consuming probiotics. Now, if you have a problem like irritable bowel disease or any of them like Crohn's or colitis, the thing to do is to heal that damage that's inside the intestine, and you do that by taking the Aloe Max. The Aloe Max will heal this damage on the inside. I don't know any other way to heal the damage from Crohn's or colitis or irritable bowel disease or irritable bowel syndrome. I don't know of any other way. Now, you want to keep that damaged area clean, and that's where the probiotics come in. When I look at someone's blood, usually the indicator that they've got something like this, one of these diseases, Crohn's, colitis, IBD, anything like SIBO, I'll see the parasites in the blood, meaning there's excess parasites in the intestines, and those parasites are getting into the blood. So that's really all one needs to do. Now, that's what I had for the main topic on small intestinal bacterial overgrowth and its relationship to Crohn's and colitis and IBD, and how to solve it if you have the problem. But just bacterial overgrowth, if you're told that, usually that concept is overdiagnosed and completely unsubstantiated. So be leery if you're told that. Now, one thing I wanted to mention is that I'm not out of the plant enzymes, and I'm not out of daily detoxification. So I have plenty for everyone until the new supply comes in in September. In order to have enough for everyone, there is a 1-bottle limit, but everybody can get their bottle to get them through one more month. So there's no need to decrease your dosage. There's no need to run out of enzymes or daily detoxification. Now, when the new batch comes in September, we can go back to case pricing, and you can order 12 bottles at a time. For everything else, the case pricing discount is still 40%, and you can do that on my website, drthomasbrewer.com. Finally, I want to mention that at some point, these podcasts will be removed from YouTube and entered into an ebook. Now, until that happens, they remain free, so please enjoy them and share them. Finally, thank you for listening, and as always, please don't keep me a secret.